another video. Hello there, everybody. Hold on. That spinning shit was pissing me off. The philosophy of Blue Lock, all the best soccer players, egotistical. This, I wanted to see this just because of Blue Lock, honestly. I wanted to see if it matched. I want to see what other people think of it. Because I'm like, yeah, you kind of have to be. You have to be confident in yourself. And you got to have ego.
Japan had just scored again against Belgium. And now the score was 2-0 in Japan's.
If you didn't have a little bit of an ego, why would you take that shot?
To the quarterfinal, a historic result for the Samurai Blue. That is, until disaster struck. And in the 69th minute, Jan Vertonghen had
what a goal!
And the floodgates opened. The game eventually ended with Japan still at 2, but sadly, Belgium had scored 3 goals to win the game.
Damn.
This real-life soul-crushing defeat for the Japanese national team sets up the stage for the hit new soccer manga and upcoming anime.
Wait, that's the thing that led to this manga? That's fire as fuck. That backstory is crazy.
Blue Lock. So, what is Blue Lock about? Well, Blue Lock is a fictional manga set in Japan during the aftermath of the 2018 defeat.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
A promising high school striker, Yuichi Isagi, as he participates in the titular Blue Lock program, which is a training program.
Bro, this shit is so far. I can't wait for later episodes.
And it's also Japan's solution to trying to win a World Cup. And this program sets out to try to create the ultimate striker, one capable of leading Japan to victory. Forming the foundational philosophy of this training program is the idea of creating an egotistical striker. But what exactly is an egotistical striker? And does this egotistical philosophy transfer to the real world? Are top strikers necessarily egotistical? And most importantly, is ego even necessary to succeed in soccer or sports in general?
I feel like you gotta have a little bit of an ego. You gotta be like, yeah, I could do this. Just give it to me. I'll make something of nothing. Like, if you're not thinking that, like, then you're not gonna be. You're not gonna be the best that you could be, right? I feel like everybody has a little bit of an ego. Even if you don't play sports, you have a little bit of an ego. Like, if you're really good at something, you're not gonna be here. You're not gonna sit here and tell me you don't got an ego about it.
Yeah, today,
just saying.
Explore the philosophy of Blue Lock. So, what is an egotistical?
It just shows how much more you care, I guess.
Defined by Blue Lock. Well, to understand what the manga means when it describes an egotistical striker, I think it's important to understand the general context the manga is set in. And by this, I mean, I think it's important to try to understand the current Japanese philosophy of soccer, as shown in the manga and in real life.
One for all for one type shit.
Jinpachi Ego thinks Japan needs an egotistical striker. So, in regards to the Japanese national team's tactics in the real world, Tifo Football has a fantastic analysis of the 2018 Japanese national team's playstyle. And to give a brief summary of that video, in 2018, Japan played with a possession-based style of soccer, one that focuses heavily on quick passing and team-focused play, and it had a heavy reliance on the midfielders and fullbacks to control possession, while the front four also played their own roles. So, in short, Japan's playstyle was heavily team-focused, with each player being a specific cog in the machine that is the Japanese national team. The sentiment is also echoed throughout the manga, with Henri Terry from the Japanese Football Association noting that Japan has a passing style, and Jinpachi Ego noting that Japan has a heavy emphasis on sticking to fixed roles in their gameplay. So given that we know Japan's philosophy is very role-oriented, Ego's philosophy stands out even more. We see that he believes that soccer isn't centered around the team, but rather the individuals involved. And
makes sense.
The strikers in the team.
Because a striker score.
This leads to his philosophy of an egotistical striker. You see, egotistical in this case doesn't mean an asshole in real life.
Exactly.
But rather, a player with specific qualities of sort. And while ego doesn't really outright define what an egotistical striker is, he does list a lot of qualities. And among these qualities, a few stand out. These defining qualities are that an egotistical player is someone who treads a path of winning or losing everything every single day to keep on surviving. They are someone who, rather than do what was best for their team, had the tenacity and courage to pursue their own will, and they are someone who thinks of everyone else on the team as supporting them. And so, when looking at these qualities, I think a central theme emerges that helps to define what an egotistical striker is. And I think that the central idea that the manga is leading towards is the idea that an egotistical striker is a self-centered striker that always believes they are or can be the best player in the world, and that they always strive to be that best player. And
Always
this
pushing
thinking
themselves. I
seemingly
like that.
fits with all the qualities we mentioned before. It fits with the idea that a striker needs to take responsibility for the team, since they believe that they are the best player on the pitch, and they have to act to lead the team that supports them to victory. They know that amongst their team, their will and choices are most directly impacting their chances of victory, and as such, they must pursue what they believe in. They also know that they must try to walk each path to victory so that they can continue to be the best player. And that doesn't mean that they don't acknowledge their mistakes, but rather they try to grow from them so that they can always be the best player
That's why I
that
like
they
Yuichi as a
visualize
main
themselves
character.
as. And so with this, we can see that Jinpachi Ego's philosophy directly
Because I heard that people wanted like Ren or the other niggas to be the main characters, but I was thinking it wouldn't really make sense. Kind
clashes
of,
with
I don't
that
know.
of the Japanese national football teams. And specifically with the Japanese national team striker in the 2018 World Cup. When we look back to the Japanese national team, we see that their central striker, Shinji Okazaki, isn't an egotistical striker, but rather he works to bring other people into the match. In making this
Oh,
decision, Shinji Okazaki doesn't match Ego's philosophy, and he effectively denies the existence of a focal point for the Japanese national team. And thus, Ego pins the lack of competitiveness for Japan on this lack of egotism in their strikers. And this leads us to the next point. Is egotism necessary for a striker to succeed in soccer? According to the manga, the answer is obviously yes, with Jinpachi Ego vehemently pushing egotism as the deciding key factor for a striker's performance. But is the answer the same in the real world?
yes
Well,
and
if we
no.
want to look at whether or not ego
You
is
gotta have a
necessary
little
to
something.
succeed, I think it's vital to look at the current top strikers. And so usually when we think of the current day top strikers, we think of people like Ronaldo, Messi, and Zlatan, all three of which are and have been exceptionally prolific goal scorers. But are these players necessarily egotistical? Well, in regards to that, these three players most certainly can be regarded as egotistical players. Ronaldo, infamously after winning his fifth Ballon d'Or, stated that he's the best player in history. Messi's nickname is the Little Dictator, a moniker that he earned as a result of his seemingly dominance over FC Barcelona and his control of their playstyle and the team on the pitch. And Zlatan, well, we all know Zlatan's antics.
Who's the best striker in the Premier League right now?
For me, I like a striker that makes the difference. Lukaku is strong. He's more the physical player that scores a lot of goals. Aguero is good.
You didn't say yourself. I was expecting you to say me.
Lions, they don't compare themselves with humans.
Bro, there was one line that he said to LeBron, which I fucking loved. He said, damn, I forgot what he said, but it was fire as fuck, actually. It was
Even
something
players
about
like
him being a
Lukaku and
god,
Lewandowski,
and
the
LeBron, and
respective
him
top
welcoming
goal
the
scorers
king.
for Serie A and the Bundesliga, have demonstrated egotistical qualities like that of what Jinpachi Ego has described.
When people talk about Lewandowski, Benzema, I don't know how to say that, surgery, Kane, they say it's a world-class level. With me, it was always about good form. I belong with that group. Put some respect. An egoist, but won't leave. See?
But even though many of these top world-class strikers have been regarded as egotistical, is there any research that seemingly backs up Jinpachi Ego's claim that strikers need to be egotistical
You probably
to
don't need to
succeed?
be, but
And so, while we haven't really found much research that directly shows
it probably helps a lot more.
between quote-unquote egotism and soccer performance, we do have research that suggests that self-confidence has been shown to be significantly correlated with skillful sports performance.
Exactly. You gotta have confidence that you could always pull anything
Including a
off.
study done by MSU professor
If you're not confident in
Phelps,
yourself, then
or
where
a
else
study
is
done
it,
by
bro?
psychologist
How can your team be confident in you if you're not confident in yourself that you can perform when they need you to?
Pamela S. Hyland and Bonnie B. Bennett. We also have testimonials from key figures in the soccer world. Bill Beswick, a former sports psychologist who has worked for Manchester United in England, cites that ego is very powerful and can be the driving force behind performances. And Mike Ford, a former director of
As long as it's not holding you back, then you
Chelsea,
good.
stated that you need a high level of confidence and
Exactly.
self-belief to perform. And that is what we characterize as ego. Even Jose Mourinho, the current manager for AS Roma and one of the greatest modern coaches, has expressed how he loves players having a certain amount of ego. having recently stated to his team in their loss to Inter Milan that the greatest defect of a man is a lack of balls, a personality. Yeah, and so with all of this evidence
Exactly.
in mind, it
That's why I
definitely
feel like
suggests
Yuichi
that
is
having
a
at least
perfect
a
main character
certain
for
amount of
this.
ego is necessary for a striker to succeed.
Because for in Blue Lock, right, Yuichi was in the mindset, or they were trying to change him into one for all for one. But like before that, the anime starts off with him in a soccer match about to go to the finals, right? He just needs to score. He dribbles past two people. He needs to score one goal to make it to the finals, right? But then he passes the ball. But he only passed the ball because he had a flashback, or his coach said one for all for one, yelled that shit out, and told him to pass the ball. So that's where that happened. But in his mind, he was thinking, I'm gonna just kick this shit and make it myself. And they were trying to change him, bro.
But soccer is a sport played with 11 players on a team. And so how does having an egotistical striker affect the team? Well, this leads us to our next point. Is an egotistical striker necessary for a team to succeed in soccer? And so the entire framework of the manga is built around the idea that you need an egotistical striker to lead the team. And so in the manga, the answer is generally yes. And so while Blue Lock itself acknowledges that, yeah, some of the top strikers of the day still haven't won a World Cup, Jinpachi Ego believes that the foundation of a team can only be built for the presence of a true egotistical striker. Without this foundation, Ego believes that teams will devolve into chaotic, unorganized play, and thus a top striker is needed to guide the team forward. However, when we look at the real world, the results may vary. 18 that won 3 Champions League in a row being a prime example. But in
Damn.
the past few years, we noticed that the presence of a top egotistical striker isn't the end-all be-all. With teams like Liverpool and Man City having a high prominence in the sport, it sort of breaks the mold of needing an egotistical striker. I mean, sure, Liverpool has players like Mo Salah and Sadio Mane, but manager Jurgen Klopp himself has fundamentally stated that all players are treated equally, with Liverpool goalkeeper Alisson reiterating the statement that you will not find a player with a bigger ego than the collective goals. And Man City has been playing a strikerless system, as described by their coach Pep Guardiola, who is a big proponent of tiki-taka soccer, which is a possession-based, team-oriented playstyle. On the other hand, we have coaches like Max Allegri, the head coach of Juventus, who firmly believes in letting the players' egos shine through the tactics, having infamously stated in the past that the tactics, schemes, they're all bullshit, and that the
Yeah, because during game time, real time, anything could happen that you're not going to be aware of. Like, you need to be able to do something, think on the fly.
way to get the best out of players such as Ronaldo is to give them free license to do as they wish on the field and not weigh them down.
Like, imagine you had a game plan, right? And then you can only go by the game plan. And then when the game plan starts failing, your coach is like, stick to the game plan. And you end up losing the game.
So, while a world-class egotistical striker might not necessarily be the end-all be-all, we can still see that these egotistical strikers have a massive impact on teams. For example, Ronaldo, after having left Juve, caused the team to be in disarray, as he was their focal point of attack, and the Juve players themselves admitted to an over-reliance on Ronaldo. A similar trend happened to Messi, who, after leaving Barcelona, the team fell into shambles, performing poorly, and in the season after he left, the team dropped out of the Champions League in the group stages, as well as fundamentally dropped out of title contention by January. And so, while we do see that an egotistical striker can have a positive influence on a team, we also see that some teams manage without them. And so, at the end of the day, we can't really exactly quantify how much an egotistical striker impacts a team. So, what can we really conclude? Honestly, we can't.
It's kind of, I'll say mine first. It would be better to have one than to have one and not need one than to not need one and have one. No, wait, not need one and need. Wait, bro, I'm lost, bro. It would be better to have one and not need one than to not have one and need one. Yeah, because of course I'm not gonna be like, of course you're going to center everything around him, but then everybody else still has a role they could play and still has they're still contributing. Like one player, I'm not going to be like one player can't really carry all 11 because if nobody's playing defense or if the goalie's not doing his job, then yeah. But it's better to have one and not need one. So if you have one and you don't need to use him, but he's there just in case anything happens, that's fire. That's fired. That's exactly what you want. But if you need one because your team is not performing well, but then you don't got that one dude who can step out and be like, I'll lead the team forward a little bit, then you're
We
tough.
can't really
Tough.
conclude whether or not Jinpachi Ego's philosophies are all true. We don't know whether or not having an egotistical striker is the clear solution for what would make the Japanese national team a world-class team. But we can definitely see that Ego's philosophy that the top strikers do possess a certain amount of egotism is fairly correct. Regardless of whether or not all of the philosophies of Blue Lock are true, it definitely is something exciting to think about, especially with all the big personalities and teams that we have in modern day soccer. And even if it doesn't turn out to be true, it doesn't take away from the pure enjoyment that comes from reading Blue Lock.
Sure.
And so I'm super excited for this anime to come out in summer and to see
It's already
how
out
they
right
do
now.
this vision. So yeah, thank you guys all for watching.
Let's see some of the comments. Our national team loses another country. Man, the team sucks. Player X shouldn't even be called anymore. It is the fault of the Federation and Director Y. Japan makes a critical manga analyzing in depth the flaws of the national team's philosophy. A critical manga which idolizes only strikers. I was critical idolizes only strikers, but in the manga they also include like other people. Like there was a striker who went to defender because of the all for one for all thing. And it's in the U20 thing. I'm not gonna spoil it because it hasn't come out yet, but that shit is fire. And he locks down Yuichi for like a little bit, and then bro was like, "I got this." Not idolizes. No, that's like saying America idolizes non-gun violence because Batman exists. What? From what I've read so far, is designed to break the social stereotypes that exist predominantly in Japan by basically saying, guys, we don't have an ace. From the very beginning, plenty of in-universe characters find the ego to thing terrifying, especially with the way ego portrays it. If it idolized the concept, do no such struggle would even happen. They just all go, he's right, and call it a day. Also, the world generally cares about strikers' names and soccer players, footballers, and other roles frequently have to work extra hard to get noticed, which is annoying, I might add, but it is part of the sort of pressure that pushes popular names to try to live up to. That is true, though. Like, I mostly know strikers. Because why? They're the ones scoring the goals, right? I don't know that much defenders because they got to stop the strikers, I guess, but I don't really know. Haven't read it, but from what I've heard, Blue Lock it basically says if we had a world class player, we would win. Well, and that's not true. That's not what they're saying. That's not what they're saying. Problem is competition at low level cups. If low, the chance to create a better player doesn't increase. And grinding them day in and day out would make one world class striker out of them is a pretty large scale. It's simple, they don't get it. I mean, not their national team, but the anime is so. It has nothing really to do with football itself. Like, look at PSG. They literally have the best striker around the world. Messi and Mbappe, Neymar. You saw it over and over again. He's a playmaker, strong defender. Bro, they are nothing more than that. Bro, they don't get it. Okay then. Alright, maybe I'm the one who doesn't get it. Okay then, no, not just ego. It would have, if you read the manga completely, you should have realized that ego is the most basic thing but the manga still focuses on tactics and stuff. There was a whole selection round based on chemical reaction between egos, something PSG isn't doing, hence they don't perform. Honestly, the manga doesn't really have flaws. That's what I'm saying, bro. Like, did bro really read it? Like, what did he read? Because in the manga, they actually have, like, tactics. They have shit going on. They sharing the ball. They're not just whatever. But let me know what you guys think. I fucked with DWarLock. That's why I wanted to see this. If you guys liked this video, like and subscribe my shit, and then go to his page, DWarLock, and like and subscribe his shit too, because I found this interesting and I wanted to share with you guys. And bye.